Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. I'm your host, Jason Carpenter. I'm having a better day. I'm having a great day. Hope you're having a great day too. I'm feeling a lot better. The antibiotics are kicking in. And speaking of feeling better, this episode, the first story is a little rough. I have a couple rough stories this week. And when I say rough, I mean slightly depressing. I know we talk about some disturbing stuff from time to time, but this one's actually a little depressing because of what happened. Spoiler alert, a 10-year-old girl gets squished to death. And, part of being we're a paranormal conspiracy true crime podcast, part of doing that is you do have to focus on crimes. I try to cover crimes, if you haven't noticed, I don't cover a lot of true crime. I try to cover stuff that's borders on paranormal or conspiracy. That's one thing I look at. The other thing is if it's funny, like John Eric Armstrong is like The Biggest Loser, the serial killer who's just a total dork. I love that guy. I love that episode. That guy's a dick, but... And then the weird unsolved ones, like Jonathan Luna, like we did yesterday. Candace Newmaker, the reason why I'm covering this story is, one, it was a request from the Bilal on Gmail, so thank you for the request. Secondly, because this practice, people still use this practice. It is still, some people consider it a legitimate form of therapy. It's been altered a bit in the preceding, or no, what would it be? Post-seeding? After this event, it's been modified a bit, but people still use a variation of this. And I want to focus more on the actual procedure rather than this girl's death, but I do have to go into it a bit. Because it's basically a cult. You have a group of therapists who are basically a cult. But anyway, so back in 2000, there was a young girl named Candace Newmaker. She was adopted at the age of 7. By the time she was 10, her adopted mother was like, I'm having a really hard time with my new daughter. What is it called when you adopt somebody? Is it your daughter? It's not like a stepdaughter. That's when you marry somebody, right? I guess that's just... So anyways, her daughter. We'll just say it's her daughter. I'm sure that's what it is. Because you don't go, this is my adopted daughter. Like, you just say, this is my daughter. I don't know. I've never adopted anyone or been adopted. But, so... Candace Newmaker, they take her to this therapist out in Colorado, and they have this thing where it's basically like building the bond between the new mom and the adopted kid. And for the first week, everything went relatively well. Like, they were bonding, she seemed to be behaving better. And then they got to this part of this therapy they call rebirthing. And what it is the child has to basically be reborn into the world. And the new mom is there, and the child is like, Mama, and the woman's like, oh, my daughter. And so you go through the traumatic experience of being born, and then you come out a new person in front of your mom. Now, they wrapped her up in a blanket and put some pillows on her so she could, squiggle out. Now, that would be fine in and of itself, but that wasn't the only part of it. Candace was 70 pounds. 4 adults got on top of her. It was a combined total weight of over 400 pounds. No, sorry. It was a combined weight of over 600 pounds out of these 4 people. I guess if it was 4 people and it was only 400 pounds, those would be very, very skinny people. But so anyways, Candace had to try to force her way out of this canal. They're constantly putting pressure on you to make you fight harder. This went on for about an hour, and Candace Newmaker died. She basically, she suffocated, she became brain dead, she passed away. The people in charge of it, who were in charge of that session, went to jail. And the mother got probation, and there were some other people there who got probation or time served or something like that as well. So that is the story of Candace Newmaker. If you want more of the gory details, that's fine. I don't mind giving gory details like ghost stories and conspiracy theories and stuff like that. This one, I was just, that's pretty much it. It's not like her gut shot out of her body or anything like that. It's just, if you want to read last words and stuff like that, I'm not that kind of, I'm not going to do that with this particular story because that's not the point of the story. So that's basically the story of Candace Newmaker. 10 years old, killed during this stupid therapy session. Now, you would think that that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard of. To think that if their theory is true, every time I crawled out of a tent, the first person I'd see, I'd be like, Mom. Now you should say, no, what if people are pushing on the tent still? Every time I crawled out of a sleeping bag that someone was, if someone jumped on a sleeping bag and I slid out, I'm like, Mom, and it's like Teddy Ruxpin. It doesn't work. The logic behind it doesn't work. And this is generally a practice that is only really recognized in a small community in Colorado. And it's only been around since the 70s. Now, when I read about this, I was like, that poor little girl. That's so horrible. And I could just imagine those therapists, they were probably half like, when they were doing it, they're probably thinking, man, we're geniuses if this works. And honestly, and I'll say this, they were probably a little, like, turned on by it. So, I mean, these scientists, you know what's so funny is when I first read the story, I imagined it like in a clinical laboratory. I remember when I was reading the article, I imagined it in like a laboratory. And I was thinking like, it's like linoleum floors and metal walls and like metal cabinets and stuff for whatever reason, because I imagined it being fairly scientific. But the more I looked into it, I thought this was probably in someone's basement. This was probably in like a strip mall. They rented out a room in a strip mall, and these people were acting like they were these behavioral psychologists or whatever. And they were just throwing kids in sleeping bags and sitting on them and charging a lot of money. This practice, even though it led to Candace Newmaker's death, it's actually one of the tamer practices of this community who talk about basically this whole set of therapists in Colorado. They focus on building up the bond between a foster and adopted child and the new parents. That's what this whole therapy is created for. This is what they do. This is nuts. It's a common form of attachment therapy is the holding therapy, where you restrain them in some way. It says, and I'm quoting here, in theory, when the child's resistance is overcome and their rage is released, so basically they're, I'm so mad, get off my sleeping bag. Once they I give up. I absolutely give up. They return to an infantile state in which he or she can be reparented by methods such as cradling, rocking, bottle feeding, and enforced eye contact. Remember, Candace was 10 years old. These aren't actual babies. What they're doing is they're breaking these young... They still do this, by the way. There are still places out there, especially in Colorado, in this community, that do this. They take a kid, they break him down or her down mentally to that of a child. And then the adopted parent will cradle you and feed you with a bottle. That's some cult stuff right there. They're actually breaking the child's brain. And so it is regressing to an infantile state and then re-experiencing childhood with the new parent. So you're breaking these kids down completely. The critics of these groups have said they are using the same techniques that are found in concentration camps and cults. The breaking down and building back up of a new personality. Candace Newmaker wasn't the only child who died either. 6 children have died over the years. Not technically in the same rebirthing session, but they were either involved in this type of therapy or shortly afterwards died of this. I will tell you this, a little behind the scenes thing. The story you're going to hear of Candace Newmaker should be about 9 to 10 minutes long. The recording, right now, I've just passed 28 minutes and 35 seconds. I've been going back and forth, having an internal debate over whether or not these people should still be able to practice for basically 20 minutes. I'm going to throw the question out to you guys. Should pseudoscientific beliefs be allowed to be practiced as normal therapy? Should they be labeled as this therapy has not been proven by science? Or should they be banned outright? That's basically what I've been debating with myself for the past 20 minutes. I'm not going to put it online or anything like that because it just goes all over the place. But I'm going to throw that out to you because I have a lot of different opinions about it and really not enough time to talk about it in this podcast. Maybe we'll talk about it in the comments, but at this point, I'm just going to throw it out to you. That was a clip from our daily podcast, Dead Rabbit Radio. Dead Rabbit Radio is available anywhere that you listen to podcasts. It's daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime news. If you want to hear the full episode that this clip came from, check the link below. Please like and subscribe. And hit that little bell, too. That does some magical stuff. Thanks, guys.